Justin, our Managing Director, to report on today's industry. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to Clean Power 2009. We clearly, if you read the sentence that we put up there on the slide, we've set ourselves a very big challenge for today. But sorry? Is it? Okay, look at your program. You've got the same wording on the program. So my first task is to thank the sponsors for today. Again, as I always say, without whom we would be unable to run these events. They are BP Alternative Energy, Centec, Marks & Clark, the Crystal Project within Anglia Ruskin University, and Clenergen Corporation. They're all gold sponsors. The other logos you see represent silver and Expo sponsors, and we're very grateful for their participation and presence. And also Creative Zones, who helped us with some of the graphic design of the logos, website and materials. So in running conferences, and this is the 12th conference we've run spinning out of the High Value Manufacturing series since 2002, people often ask the team marketing the conference before the event and myself, who will be the audience? And so what I've done this time is to just do a little pie chart of all of us in the room or on the list of delegates there. And as you see, about a quarter of the attendees are from what we call Tier 1 technology companies. These are people working in one particular sector, in our case the energy sector. They have intellectual property or R&D spend, and they may be large MNC companies, or they may be SME startups. About a fifth of us are in a category which we call Tier 2, expert consultants and academics. These are consultants who understand the technology or the science or the engineering. They have the ability to create more intellectual property. And people like the big four consultancies in Cambridge are regularly spinning out Tier 1 companies that are in the top bracket there, the 24%. And we also include academic organisations rather than companies in that category. The biggest group is within services, what we call Tier 3. It also includes the 1 in 10 of us that have money to invest in the technology companies, or who are corporate financiers helping to raise those funds. The service providers are the law firms and the network associations and so on. I mentioned the 1 in 10 of us that have funds here today. The remaining fifth, approximately 20%, come from the media, government, or indeed community organisations, activists and students. And I want just to have a show of hands. I'm going to ask a question and get you to be involved right away. Put your hand up if you are here purely or primarily for profit and business. So I'm thinking of the triple bottom line, and of course we've got people and planet in that, and we also have profit. How many people really, mainly, you're about business and profit? Okay, so I would say that was not everybody, but a good sway, perhaps the majority. And how many would say they are genuinely triple bottom line? It may be that they're interested in profit, but you're also interested in other aspects of aesthetics, possibly even morals, but people and planet as well as business. Show of hands for that too, please. So that's quite a large number, actually more than our 7% there. Now, if I were to ask you that question, for you personally as an individual, compared to your organisation, how many people would raise their hands and say the answer is different between the two? Is it always the same answer, or would you say your organisation is different from you personally? Okay, it's interesting. Not many people willing to answer that. Okay, so I've set myself the task of reporting to you the context, and this really comes from the World Business Summit on Climate Change, which took place 3 or 4 weeks ago in Copenhagen. And this slide was the call from that conference, which is the result of 2.5 days of discussions by 800 business people, and which was handed in the presence of the Queen of Denmark to the Prime Minister of Denmark, who then promised to feed in these 6 points to the new Kyoto discussions among heads of state, which will take place from the 8th of December to the 18th this year. And that is basically the update of Kyoto, which took place in 12 years ago in 1997. There are a number of difficulties with this, and I'm sorry there's such a lot there, and this is teeming with meaning. Obviously, it condenses a huge number of discussions. The quotation marks are mine, and I wonder if everyone agrees what this means: sustainable economic future. It's unfortunate that we want to get a firm foundation for something which I think, do we mean stability economically? Do we mean that we're going to be stable, or we're growing in a non-volatile way forever, or does this mean something about sustainable environment? We would think the latter if it's a World Business Summit on climate change. It's a semantic problem. So the 6 points, the first one is really reaching those targets on medium and long-term emissions reductions. The key words really, obviously, agreement. We need to take the Americans with us this time, and hopefully all nations should be able to agree on a science-based greenhouse gas stabilization path. So not just setting targets, but how do we get there? And again, there are a number of problems already with this, in that some quite significant gaps. The Americans are willing to, within the West and West, the Americans are willing to talk about reductions by 6% in 2020 versus the 1990 emissions levels. Whereas in Europe, we are happy to talk about 20+% reductions. And the variable there is total greenhouse gas emissions for the West. Unfortunately, the East, and I think of the countries, the BRICS nations, China in particular, they are focused on another variable called carbon intensity, and in which, in the denominator, you put GDP. Now, of course, these are rapidly growing economies. And so, even if they keep their emissions levels, they keep their emissions levels flat or go up, because of the GDP in the denominator, they can actually bring that down and reach, say, a target of reducing it by 20% by 2020. And the worry is that China, of course, is now, we understand, is the world's greatest absolute emitter of greenhouse gases. And therefore, maybe these targets that they are proposing do not solve the problem that the scientists told us were at hand in March in Copenhagen. Points 2, 3, and 4, I think, are an opportunity for Cambridge and for the UK and for global technology clusters of high-tech companies. First of all, the World Business grouping said they wanted more measurement, reporting, and verification. The old adage in management is, of course, you can't manage what you can't measure. And so, we're going to be seeing bottles of wine from South Australia versus bottles of wine from France, and they'll have a label, and the ones from South Australia, if you're in London, it's going to have a very big number on it for emissions versus the one from France, and that may have interesting implications. But all of that stuff, I think, is an opportunity for instrumentation. People are into business models and so on. Of course, there's another huge gap here in financing low emissions technologies. We know that venture capital is as the visible spectrum within all the spectrum of going from X-rays right to radio waves. There's a hell of a lot out there which venture capital, because of its stringencies and the things that it can invest in and cannot, it will miss. And the problem is we have to invest and jumpstart all these low emissions technologies very quickly, and yet the funding isn't set up to hit that swathe of possible investment. Deployment, the key word in number 4, probably an even bigger problem. All this needs to, actually, we'll see this afternoon and throughout today, that a lot of these technologies which have low carbon emissions, renewables and so on, exist. They're out there, they work, They may not be perfect yet, but they are efficient and work. And it's a scale-up problem. It's a high-value manufacturing scale-up problem. It's a problem of getting this out to the field and marketing and so on. They also called for development of new technologies. And of course, then, again, Cambridge High-Tech Cluster and other clusters would be well positioned for that. The last 2 points, adaptation, which there have been a number of talks in Cambridge about that and globally. It works out to be about 40% of the money that people were calling for, the other 60% being for mitigation. Again, I'm referring to that conference in Copenhagen. And we're not really positioned to do this in our conference series, the reforestation stuff. But apparently this contributes, if you wipe out the forests, which we're rapidly doing, then that would contribute to 20% more emissions because you've lost that carbon sink. It's an important point. Before I hand over, I just wanted to talk about my company briefly, Cambridge Investment Research, a partnership model. I've written down the names of some of the partners here. And perhaps one of the biggest contributions we're making at the moment is on the consulting side. And we've been developing a model which large customers, people with lots of land and property, can use to minimize their use and cost of energy and cost of energy management through our consultation modeling process. We write reports, I don't want to focus on that, but we obviously do conferences, and there are 4 in 2009. The other 3 taking place later in the year are very much downstream of today's conference, and this is a coherent set. Up here we have the industrial side. You might perhaps call this turbo lean. It's all about resource efficiency, recycling, doing more with less, and also changes in business models so that we go to sale of service. And in Copenhagen, a guy called Shai Agassi, who's got a battery vehicle company called Better Place. I don't know how many people have heard of this, but they're really doing the sale of service model. They retain ownership of the batteries. The batteries are positioned in service stations, petrol stations, and you drive up with your battery vehicle and buy electric kilometers. It only takes apparently 30 seconds to change the battery, and then off you go. It's even faster than filling up with petrol. The point is, they retain the batteries, so it's kind of incumbent on them to save money by looking after those and developing technologies which will make the batteries last longer and recycle and so on. That's the whole thing that we talk about in our electric vehicle conference in December, which is the middle of the 3 days, the 2nd, 3rd and 4th of December. And the final conference, 2 successful events in 2008 and 2007 on sustainable built environments. And this brings in the companies doing stuff, microgeneration, passive house to reduce the need for energy generation within homes and properties, and all the technologies that reduce the power requirements of electronics. And that, as I say, has been really popular. So with that, I would like to, great pleasure, hand over to my colleague Mike McCreary, who's a senior CIR consultant. He's had a long-standing career in energy-intensive, high-value manufacturing, and in particular running what was Marconi Instruments, which had more than 800 staff and was doing work in the electronics industry. So thank you very much to all of you for coming today. I hope you have a super day, and I hope that we all have a chance to meet up and talk in person during the day. Thank you very much. Thanks, Mike.